Muzicheadz.com. Welcome back to the Muzicheadz Show, and this week we have Hewett. Joining me, Martha Samasoni, on the fastest and hottest half hour anywhere on Legend 107.
This is Hewett. You're listening to the Muzicheadz Show with Martha.
I know you come a long way, baby, but you don't need that heart of stone, no. To prove that you can do it, baby. You can make it on your own, but you can't keep running away from love, 'cause the first one let you down, no. And the others try to satisfy you, baby. With me, true love can still be found. Love can still be found. The second time around. Ooh, the second time is so much better, baby. The second time around. And I make it better than the first time. You know I really love you, and I paid for my mistakes. Yes, I did, girl. The more I try to hide my feelings, baby, this old heart gets in the way, and love won't let me wait. The second time around, girl, with me is better than the first time. The second time around, let's do it one more time. Say it again. The second time around, all that I've been through, I'll do it again, just as long as I'm with you. The second time around, the second time. I'll make it so good to you, babe. I'll make it so good to you. Not like the first time, not like the first time, not like the first time. Talking about the second time. Not like the first time, not like the first time, not like the first time. Talking about the second time. You can't keep running away from love, 'cause the first one let you down, and the others tried to satisfy you, baby. With me, true love can still be found. The second time around, gonna keep your mind the second time, baby. The second time around, I'll know what to do, just as long as I'm with you. The second time around, do it one more.
Okay, formerly of the group Shalamar and now with a very successful solo career as an artist, Muzicheadz welcomes to the hot seat down under legendary R&B singer Hewett. Hewett, welcome to our hot seat.
Thank you very much. I hope it's not too hot.
It's okay, it doesn't burn. You have had such a successful career, but I want to go back to the Shalimar days. So tell us about that period and also working with, Don Cornelius and Dick Griffey.
What was unique about my history with Shalimar was that I was actually the third lead singer they had. The first tune they had out got Gary Mumford on there, and then the second single they had was Take That to the Bank. This cat Gerald Brown sang that. And then I came in, I think the last month of 1979. And I literally got the offer on a Friday because I had been kicking around LA for about 6 months. I had put together a show group before that was overseas for about a year and a half. And we came back and I kicked around LA for about 6 months. And I got the offer on a Friday from Jeffrey Daniels to join the group. They were in New Jersey. They were going from New York to New Jersey. And they were in the middle of a promotional tour. And the lead singer they had at the time, Gerald Brown, he said, hey, they got into a little thing or whatever. And And he said, well, when y'all see it my way, give me a call. And he jumps on a plane and leaves them in the middle of a promotional tour with no lead singer, right? So Jeffrey knew me from the group that I had gone overseas with, because we used to play this place called Mavericks Flat. A lot of the Soul Train people used to come down there. They saw me with that group. And so he called me on Friday, made me an offer, and where he found me, I was at the Motown building up in Hollywood, and I was on the 15th floor of that building, and Solar had an office on the 9th floor of the same building. So he calls me, I get the offer on Friday, I go downstairs, I talk to Dick Griffey, who owned Solar Records at the time. By that time, he and Don Cornelius had already split partnership as far as the record company was concerned. But I talked to Dick Griffey. The next morning, I went over to Dick Griffey's house and watched the videotape of a Shalamar show. And I remember sitting in a rocking chair and Dick says, well, sing something. Jeffrey and Jody say you're a great singer. Sing something. And I say, well, just a cappella, just sing something. He says, yeah. I said to myself, well, Lord, me and you, right? And I broke into Feel the Fire by Peebo Bryson and got through the first verse, half the hook, and Dick says, okay, that's fine. He goes upstairs, comes back downstairs, and he goes in one pocket and he gives me like $500 cash, which was cool because I was broke. I had no money, at the time, and gave me $500 cash. He went into the other pocket, brought out an airline ticket, and that was back in the day when I could ride on your airline ticket. My name didn't have to be on the ticket, so he brought out an airline ticket, and I had to catch the red eye out that night to meet Jeffrey and Jody in New Jersey on Sunday morning. Now, all day Sunday, we were rehearsing the choreography and the lip sync to take that to the bank because Monday we had to do a TV show, a little local dance TV show in Patterson, New Jersey. So that's how it went down. It was that fast from the offer to actually forming with the group. And then we continued on with the promotional tour. I think we had another a month and a half or 2 months. But it was an amazing time because Solar was developing at the time, and Solar started out as Soul Train Record, and that was with Don Cornelius and Dick Griffey. But, like I said earlier, by the time I got with them, Don and Dick had already split partnership as far as the record company is concerned. Because that was the beginning of my recording career. I guess I was about 22 years old at that time. I spent a lot of time just kind of sitting back, checking out Leon Silvers. Leon Silvers was our producer at the time, and watching his method of recording, implementing it with my sensibilities, and that was the foundation of my production situation. So it was a fantastic, amazing time for learning and experiencing stuff.
I read that you introduced body popping to the UK. So what's body popping?
Well, I didn't introduce body popping. Shalimar was myself, Jeffrey Daniel, and Jody Watley. Jeffrey and Jody used to dance on the Soul Train TV show. So Jeffrey introduced body popping and also a thing that we used to call the backslide. And Jeffrey actually literally, and I'm not hating on anybody, but Jeffrey literally taught Michael Jackson how to do the backslide. And Michael eventually called it the moonwalk here in California. We used to play Disneyland all the time. We did grad nights and we did regular shows there. And every time we would do a regular show there, Michael Jackson would come to the show, stand backstage. He'd have this surgical mask on and everything, and he'd stand backstage and he would watch our show from backstage. The first song in our show back then was this tune called Right in the Socket. And when we were in the middle of the tune, the band would break down into this funky groove, and Jody and I would stand on one side of the stage and Jeffrey would be all the way on the other side of the stage, and Jody and I would pull this imaginary rope, right? And Jeffrey would backslide all the way across the stage. And Michael went crazy. He loved it. And the audience also. The audience would go crazy. So Michael wanted to learn how to do the backslide. At the time he wanted to learn it, we were getting ready to go over to the UK to do about a 6-week promotional tour or something like that, 5 or 6 weeks. And so Jeffrey couldn't go over to the house over on Havenhurst, to teach him. So Jeffrey also had this dance troupe here, and 2 members of the dance troupe were these 2 cats cats named Casper and Cooley. So he sent Casper and Cooley over to the house over on Havenhurst to teach Michael how to do the backslide. Once we got back from the UK, found out that, Mike, for some reason, he couldn't just grasp it from Casper and Cooley, the whole concept of the backslide from them. So Michael hired Jeffrey to come over there and teach him how to do the backslide. And like I said, after he learned how to do it, he went on the 25th Motown anniversary situation, and he coined it the moonwalk. And, Jeffrey, it's not like he stole anything from Jeffrey. I'm not saying that, because there's nothing new under the sun. Jeffrey got it from somewhere else too. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And Mike had mad respect for Jeffrey. In fact, Jeffrey choreographed. He was a choreographer for Smooth Criminal. He did a lot of the choreography for Bad, and that was the beginning of Jeffrey's side career also as a choreographer. So it worked all good. But Jeffrey and Jody were dancing. I was a singer. I am a singer. I don't dance.
That's so cool. Wow, a bit of history there. I didn't realise that. So that's awesome. Now, if there was a favourite song for you from Shalamar, what song would you choose as one of your top songs?
A Shalimar song?
Yeah.
One of my favorite Shalimar songs, and the most significant song, is a song called For the Lover in You. I say it's really significant in the development of Shalimar, because when I first got with the group, whenever the people would write anything about Shalimar, like the first song I did with them was Second Time Around, the whole thing. So people would talk about, Shalimar, the disco group, the dance group, and all this. And I'm sorry, a lot of people get mad when I say this, but I was never really a big fan of disco, because to me it was a lot of fabricated music. The initial development of Shalimar, like I said, the first single that was out was called Uptown Festival, and Jeffrey and Jody weren't even on that single. So what they would do back then, producers and studio musicians and studio vocalists would get together and they put a single together, and then they throw it out there, and if it started making some noise on the radio, then they would rush around and put a group together around that single. There wouldn't even have to be the specific people that sang on the single. So, that's how Shalimar actually initially developed. Fortunately, we were one of the very, very few groups that were able to transcend from that initial fabricated development and transcend into a serious group. But when we did For the Lover in You was more of a mid-ish to ballad type of groove, romantic song, and the whole thing. So it took Shalimar from the disco group into Shalimar, the group, the pop group, the R&B group. And that to me was a very significant development for the group. So, not only is it a great song, and also it was one of the first songs that I co-wrote, as far as for Shalimar was concerned. So it has a lot of significance for me, and it's one of my favorite songs, and it's proven to be one of the standards through the years.
It's got to be real. Girl, I could write a book on how you're making me feel. I know I'll never find another who could match the love you're giving to me. So this is for the lover in you. This ring means I'll always be true. This is I will start loving you. This time it's gonna last forever. I trust you, yes I do. And girl, you're not the
You got to a stage where you decided that you needed to pursue a solo career, and very successfully too.
Yeah, it was the transition from the group to the solo situation came at a time because Jeffrey and Jody, they left the group at like 83, 84, somewhere around there. And at that time, when they left, we were like brothers and sisters, but we got into a thing where we couldn't really, get past, and we didn't have that upper level-headed figure to really, guide us through some stuff. They left the group first, and at that time, I wanted to do my solo situation. But I still had about 2.5 years left on a recording contract with Solar Record. And so Dick Griffey said, we can either spend this 2.5 years creating a new album, or we can spend this 2.5 years in the court system. And so I guess I didn't want to spend 2.5 years in the court, get out of a contract. So that's when we did the last album that I did with Solar and with Shalamar. But then in 85, the contract was up. And so Elektra, which was Solar's distribution company, had this thing called first rights or refusal. Anybody that came off of Solar, Elektra Records had the first bid, had the first opportunity to grab them up. And so they grabbed me and they, wanted me to record on their label. So I started the solo career like in 85 and, started out with, first solo album was called I Commit to Love, which had I'm For Real on it, Stay, and then it had this tune on there that has become like a gospel standard now throughout the country here and throughout the U.S. called Say Amen. So it was a very successful first solo album.
Do you have any advice you want to pass on to our Muzicheadz artists?
I get that question all the time, Martha, and I'm proud that people, think what I've done, can help them through, some things that they're trying to accomplish in their lives. And I talk to young people all the time, and one of the most significant things that I pass on to a lot of young kids, it's about being in the right place at the right time and being prepared. You have to be prepared. You have to build a foundation. If you sing. Many opportunities as you can get to sing. If you act, as many opportunities as you have to act act and the whole thing. Because for one thing, not only will you be furthering and developing your skill, but the other most important thing about that is that you never know who's out there listening. You never know who's out there watching. Now, I was in the right place at the right time, but if I hadn't been prepared, if I hadn't done all that, I hadn't set all that other foundation, that previous foundation, then that opportunity may have passed me by. You know, Dick Griffey may not have been as impressed with my vocal situation. I may not have had the confidence in myself, you know, to sit there and sing a cappella in front of the owner of a record company. So it's being in the right place, the right time, and being prepared.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm going to move over to some Muzicheadz questions. Howard Hewett, do you have a shush out?
I do a shush out here to the Republican Party here in the United States. Get your stuff together. That's my shush out. Because you are dealing in a situation where 80 to 90% of the country have moved to a whole different place, and you're still living in the past. My shush out is to the Republican Party, especially on gun control, gun laws here in the United States, women's health situation here in the States, everything. That's my shush out.
Howard Hewett, do you have an uh-oh moment?
My uh-oh moment, I think, is one that most entertainers, especially performing, touring entertainers, are like the most afraid of. My uh-oh moment was when I went on stage in Detroit, Michigan, and said, "How you doing, Washington, D.C.?" I think that's everybody's most drastic, most fearful fear that you have, that you're going to say the wrong city, because a lot of times you're in one city one night, next city, next city, 3, 4, 5 nights in a row. And this particular time, I was wiped out. It was the last night of about a 6-night run, and we were in a different city every night for like 6 nights. And the night before, we were in Washington, D.C., and then we came out in Detroit, and I called out Washington, D.C. It was like crazy. Jeffrey was like next to me. He says, "We're in Detroit, man. We're in Detroit." And so I said, "Oh, just making sure you guys are paying attention. What's up, Detroit?"
Great comeback. Now, rep your city, rep your hood.
Akron, Ohio.
Yeah.
The thing about Akron was that Akron was actually the rubber capital of the world, actually. All the rubber factories used to be there. They made tires and everything there. They had Goodyear, Goodrich, Cyberling, Mohawk, Firestone. Everybody had their factories there in Akron, Ohio. And it was a beautiful time to grow up at that time, because middle class was thriving and everybody had their thing. And it was like a lot of people tried to do, there was one of 3 things when you were growing up in Akron. Worked in the rubber factory, you did music, or else you were a pimp.
The choices. Okay.
And some cats tried to do all 3,
What would you see as one of your highlights? I know you've had many, but what's maybe the top highlight for you?
Yeah, like you said, there's been many highlights, and looking forward to many more. I think one of the biggest highlights was when we played Wembley Arena in London. And, it was like the arena is like a 10, 15,000 seater. When the show went up for sale, this was when I was with the group, when I was with Shalamar, when the show went up for sale, after we had played the Dominion Theater, which held about 3,500, we played that like 8 times during the tour that we did. And then at the last minute, they added Wembley Arena. Wembley Arena like sold out within like 15, 20 minutes. Once they put the tickets up for sale, it sold out within 15, 20 minutes. To get out there on that stage and see the sea of people just grooving and just having a good time to our music. And it was an incredible, very, very incredible feeling. But when I think about it, when I first got out here to California, like I said, I got out here, I literally had $34 in my pocket when I touched down at LAX. I put the show group together a couple months after I got out here, and it took us about a year to get developed enough to tour. And even when we started touring overseas, I was a hired vocalist. I was making $250, $300 a week, but I'm in Saint-Tropez, France, Benidorm, Spain. I'm in Geneva, Switzerland, Helsinki, Finland, all over the place. But during that time, my dad, who was totally and was like completely supportive of my singing career, but as a father, as he should be, he was concerned about what I was doing. And he worked at the post office in Akron, Ohio. He retired from the post office. But during that time of me developing in LA, kicking around in LA, trying to get this happening, that happening, get up on this, get up on that, right? But during that time, he would always tell me, he said, son, you can come back here and I can get you on at the post office. And you got full benefits, everything, medical benefits, everything. And I told him, I said, Dad, I'm trying to do something here. Finally, when Second Time Around came out and was #1 on across the board, R&B, pop, the whole thing. We went on the road, we went on tour, and they booked this place called EJ Performing Arts Center in Akron, Ohio, which again, we put they put the show up on sale. It sold out within a matter of hours. And then they had to add a second show. But the highlight was Dad sitting right there in the front row, an end to my madness. And he was right there. And for him to see that and to see what I was trying to accomplish, that was like the highlight of my career. He passed away like about 7, 8, 9 months later. But for him to see that, when I think about it, that's probably the biggest highlight of my career.
Howard Hewett, thank you for joining us at Muzicheadz.com. We will make sure we keep up to date with what you've got coming up in the future as well, and hopefully catch up very soon sometime. And we'll definitely make sure we keep you up to date with what's going on with Howard Hewett. Thank you so much for joining us. You're with Muzicheadz.com. Martha Samasoni, signing out. Muzicheadz.com